would you look at that? A video that is not about a cinematic. With that said, a new cinematic was already released, so you know what's coming next. But today we are going to have a look at the last issue of the Z comic. This is the grand finale we've been waiting for, because up until this point, we were kind of able to predict where the comic would be heading. But the issue 6 is where we should get all the answers. So without further ado, let's have a look at how this story ends. Just like it was in the last comic, the map at the beginning only shows two places, Kashuri in Ionia and Piltover and Zone, so it shouldn't be hard to remember where this comic takes place. It's either here or here. And so, at the very beginning, the comic starts with the image where the last issue ended, with Zed and Shen in Zone jumping into the action. Just in case you don't remember, in the last issue Jin was able to capture Akali, and he's using her as a bait to lure out Shen and Zed. So just as these two drop in, we can see Akali hanging there on the tree, with Jin being suspiciously peaceful. Also, the mechanized trees that Jin brought with him have guns, just in case you don't remember that from last time. Of course, with Shen being the Eye of Twilight and having access to the Spirit Realm, he can jump in and out of the Spirit Realm as he wants, which is how he can teleport around. That's what his ultimate is in the game. And so he used this technique to close the distance on Jin, after which it was revealed that the reason why Jin looked so peaceful, while trees with guns were shooting around him, was because this was just a bait, and the peaceful Jin was a mechanized puppet. After this we see 4 snipe shots coming from above. 4 because it is Jin, but what's surprising is that the 4th shot didn't hit anything. Usually Jin fires 3 times and then the 4th shot is the killing shot. But here it's just 4 for the sake of being 4. All it managed to do was to knock Shen on the ground. After which the real Jin revealed himself, using a WWE microphone. As you can notice, the only person that is standing in front of Jin is Shen. That's because all this time, Zed was hiding. Which is why Jin started calling after Zed. He was patiently waiting for Zed to reveal himself. But then, as Jin keeps talking, he mentioned something interesting. As Jin was calling out to Zed, he asked him if Shen knows about the secret. Which, to be clear, is something even we don't know right now. We just know that there is something fishy happening around Zed. But when Shen asked what was this about, Jin revealed nothing. And instead he turned his attention towards Akali, who was still tied there on the tree. And that's the moment where Zed finally revealed himself. He jumped out from the shadows and together with Shen they attacked at the same time. Zed threw out his blades, and Shen used the Spirit Realm to close the distance again. But with Jin being a slithering snake, he was able to dodge all the attacks. After which a new machine enters the scene. I have no idea what this is, but it seems to be shooting down cranes. And 2 of these cranes managed to pin down Shen and Zed. The 2 blades that Zed threw at Jin at the beginning of this fight then curved back. But again, Jin managed to easily dodge them. What he didn't notice though, is that Zed wasn't aiming for him. Even though Jin dodged the blades cut Akali loose. Jin then decided to have an artistic speech, as he slowly approached Shen. He wanted Zed to watch him die, because Shen was his only true friend, and he owed everything to him. But with Akali being cut loose, she was able to ambush Jin, and she even managed to pick up his gun, and she was ready to end it all there. But not only did Shen want to prevent her from killing Jin, Zed wanted the same. And so he jumped in and pushed Akali to the side. That's because Zed still had some honor, and he promised Shen that they would take Jin alive. So instead of killing him, he interrogated him, and he asked about the one thing that was set up in the previous issue. Zed wanted to know who let Jin loose. Because right now there were only 3 people alive who knew about Jin. Shen, Zed, and the lover that was promised to Shen. But when Zed asked Jin how did he escape the Tula prison, Jin replied that he didn't escape, and he knew that Zed knew it as well. So then Zed asked who let him out, to which, once again, Jin said that Zed already knew it. He knew all along. And he added that when Jin was set free, Zed was free as well. This probably doesn't make sense to you now, but it will in a second. After this, Zed threw Jin on the ground, and he told Shen that their bargain was done. Shen wasn't done with Zed yet, but at that point Zed didn't care, and he fled the scene. The story then cuts back to Kashuri in Ionia. Here you can see the armies of the Shadow Order, with the temple hidden inside a shadowy mist. We can see that even though Zed is a member of the Shadow Order, for some reason he's sneaking past all the guards, and he's climbing up the walls, staying clear from anyone's sight. And when he entered the hidden temple, he was greeted by a dark voice. Zed never told Shen what really happened back in the Kinko temple, but he was leaving breadcrumbs around, hoping that one day Shen would discover the truth. But unfortunately, that never happened, with the truth being that his father is still alive. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the best twist we have had in a long time. You see, now if you look at our last video about the Zed comic, my peeing joke suddenly isn't so bad, is it? I told people that Zed killing Master Kusho was nonsense. There were dozens of better ways how he could have dealt with the situation. And I remember I specifically mentioned in the video that Zed should have convinced Master Kusho to stay in hiding and pretend that he was dead. That way the Kinko Order would hate Zed, which would make sure they would stay on the balanced path, while at the same time Master Kusho would still be alive. And long and behold, that is exactly what happened. What's even better is that if you go back and read all the previous issues, there were hints that Master Kusho was alive all along. When Zed left Cain to lead the Shadow Order, Cain even mentioned to the other members that they shouldn't disturb their patron. We didn't really know who the patron was, but now we know the mysterious figure that was hinted at was Master Kusho all along. But anyway, that was enough for the introduction of this plot twist, so let's have a look at what's happening here. The scene introduces Master Kusho in a really creepy way. He's in a hall with his own statues, and let's be honest, he looks a little bit like the Emperor, and I love that. Him and Zed started talking about whether Shen knows the truth, to which Zed said that Shen still doesn't know anything, even though Zed was trying to hint at the truth. But what's important is that the reason why Zed snuck into the temple and he met his master is because Master Kusho was the one who released Jin. So Zed was essentially betrayed by Master Kusho, and he wanted to know why. Zed explains that Jin destroyed an entire city, and he intended to kill Shen, which was Master Kusho's own son. Kusho replied that Zed was more of his son than Shen ever was, and he continued explaining his entire plan. He revealed that Zed did convince him to fake his own death, which would make the Kinko Order stay as it was, pure in its mission to maintain balance. While at the same time, it would allow Zed and Master Kusho to use the forbidden magic to protect their land. And at the same time, it would allow Master Kusho to take control over the Navori Brotherhood. So not only is Master Kusho the master of the Shadow Order, he is also the person who is controlling the Navori Brotherhood. This combination gave Master Kusho enough power to control the entire country and lead it to safety from behind the scenes. And now Master Kusho was ready for the final step. People needed to be reminded of the horrors that came with the war. The Noxians were mostly gone, which meant that people were slowly returning to their normal lives. So everyone just started caring about themselves. But when Master Kusho released Jin, terror returned to everyday lives. That's why he needed Jin. People wouldn't be willing to kneel unless they were afraid. But what was even better, according to Master Kusho, people already believed that the attack on Nenthi was an attack plotted by foreign agents. And after Master Kusho explained all of this, he then asked Zed to join them. Together they would unite Ionia once again. It didn't seem like Zed believed that this would be the right option, but Kusho tried to sway him. He explained that with the production of the Kashuri armories and control of the trade routes for the foreigners' weapons, the war would be swift. And yes, many lives would be lost. But this was what Zed was against. Zed remembered the old lessons of the scales, which Master Kusho taught him when he was young. He became an assassin because taking one life could save many. But now it was obvious Master Kusho never cared about this. To which Kusho replied that he learned not to care about the deaths of peasants and nobodies. But Zed reminded him that even he was a peasant once, which is why to Kusho he was replaceable. Since it was obvious that Zed wouldn't be joining Kusho's side, Kusho ordered Cain, the second in line to be the Master of Shadows, to kill his master. As Cain stepped in, looking way cooler than ever, he told Zed that there was an entire army waiting to kill him outside, and they were waiting to serve Cain and Lord Kusho instead. These people had no loyalty to Zed, and they had no honor. But honor is something Cain knew of. It was something Zed taught him about. Cain added that perhaps one day him and Zed will duel, but it wouldn't be today, because Cain isn't taking orders from Lord Kusho, which is why he stood beside Zed. Cain then explained the situation outside, how some people stayed loyal to Zed and they gathered in the mountains, but some traders still remained outside the temple. So Cain asked what they should do about them, to which Zed ordered Cain to kill them, which was an order Cain would gladly accept. And after this, the final battle began. At this point, Kusho was totally consumed by the shadows, and his mind was broken. As he ripped off his clothes, you can even notice the shadowy tattoos, which are similar to what Zed has on his body. I believe that these magical tattoos empower the shadow technique. Either way, the black box that we saw at the beginning of this comic returns. But here we see Master Kusho embrace what the box contains, which turned him into perhaps the coolest side character we have ever seen. The shadow technique is supposed to be based on the shadow magic, which essentially comes from the shadow realm, which is connected to Nocturne. And this entire shadowy package is supposed to contain horrors, which is why Master Kusho looks like what he does here. This is the amalgamation of the shadowy madness. And perhaps once Nocturne gets a rework, we might get something like this. Anyway, as Kusho and Zed started their fight, Kusho kept saying that Zed should have stained his honor. He should have told Shen the truth, but instead Zed came here to kill him. And all of this nonsense happened just because Zed was trying to be honorable. Zed quickly replied that a man without honor is not a man, but Kusho doubted that. What is curious is that as the two fought, Kusho even mentioned Zed's father, which is a person that was never really mentioned in the story before. Govos was Zed's original name, and that name was given to him by his father. But unfortunately his father left Zed when he was about 4 years old, which means that Zed's father is still somewhere in the world. So I think Wright is actually trying to set up a new character. What's even more interesting is that as Kusho grabs Zed, and he's trying to surround his mind with the shadowy madness, Kusho talks about the past. He mentioned how he let his own son be a punching bag for Zed, and he remembered how Zed cried when Master Kusho renamed him to Yusen. All this time, Zed was just a tool for him. But Zed knew that the path that Kusho was carving for him was a road to madness. But Kusho kept going with the maddening memories. He then told Zed to remember his mother, which is also a character which we don't really know anything about. Kusho mentioned that one day Zed's mother visited him at the monastery, but when she stood there crying on the stairway, Zed refused to even greet her, and so his mother was dragged away. Which reveals that in reality, it seems like both of Zed's parents are somewhere out there. Then Kusho brought up the memory of Yennevi, which was Zed's forbidden love that was promised to Shen. And Zed's relationship with Yennevi was also a secret that he kept from him. After Kusho was done with showing Zed all these memories, he pointed out that Zed had not attacked yet, and he wondered if he was not doing that, once again, for honor. But Zed replied that he was just being patient. With all of this shadow magic, Kusho was slowly burning his own power, which gave Zed a chance to overpower him. Kusho only accepted the power of the shadows about a month ago, but Zed studied the shadows for years, and he spent a lifetime mastering it. It is true that Zed wanted to wield this power, which is why he let Kusho keep the shadow magic alive. It was so Zed would have time to master it. And since now Lord Kusho was no longer an equal to him, it was time to end it all. And after the one last strike, we have this scene. This scene is great, because all the things that Zed was lying about, how he was telling Shen that he killed the master, and how he explained that he was honorless all along, it all suddenly became the truth. He really did kill Shen's father. Only it happened quite a few years later. All he wanted was to keep Lord Kusho alive, while at the same time he would be able to save Ionia. But eventually the shadows gave Kusho too much power, and it took over his mind. And with that, this chapter ends. What's a real shame about this is that this comic turned Master Kusho into an amazing character. Looking at the shadowy design, I would love to see this guy in League. So it is really unfortunate that they set him up and they took him away in the same comic. I would truly love to see more of Master Kusho while his mind was overtaken by the shadows. Anyway, this takes us to the last pages of this comic. As Zed walked out, Kain awaited him after killing all the soldiers. He said that there were about 1,000 more soldiers in their way, but that's something they could easily deal with. Kain also called Zed a jerk, because Zed considered the option that Kain could betray him, but Kain explained that he could never do that. Zed was the one who saved his life when Kain was used by Noxians as a weapon during the Ionian invasion, and Zed was the one who fed him, gave him home and purpose. Kain couldn't kill the person who made him what he is, and he added that it would be similar to Zed killing Shen. He would never do that either. But after a smile, Zed replied that he may not have an option, and that now they stand against everyone. They are hated by the Navori Brotherhood, by the Kinko, and the rest of the Shadow Council. But Kain just shrugged and said that it sounds like fun. After this, Kain and Zed walk into the sunset, like the bros they are. And Kane even started talking about what happened in the last issue, where Zed let Shen beat him up. Zed said that he did it so that Shen would have the option to discover the real truth. But Kane added that Shen really beat him up bloody. Zed laughed and asked if this was really what Kane wanted to talk about. And Kane nodded that yes, in great length. And that is where the comic ends. To be honest, out of the 3 comics, I think that this one is my favorite. From the best to the worst, even though the worst is actually still pretty good, it would be Zed, Lux and Ash. Again, it is a real shame that Master Kusho was simply removed. He seemed like a really cool character, especially since he looked like the Emperor. This could have been another great villain for Ionia. But the interesting thing is that even though we see Kusho dead at the end, we don't really know what happened to his body. From what we know, maybe the shadows are keeping Kusho alive. Maybe he is not truly dead. And who knows, maybe the masked man who refuses to die could be Kusho. But that will probably not be the case, because there is also a hint towards this champion in the newest story on Universe. That one's about Ionia. So who knows? I believe that since the Z comic is finished, we actually don't know what comic will be next. I'm going to assume that Riot will go from region to region. So the next great candidate might be either the Shadow Isles, because you know, the Ruined King game is still on its way, or we might actually get Piltover and Zone, because not only is the Arcane cinematic on its way as well, but the Echo game is also in development, and these comics would be great advertisements for those things. All we should do is rejoice, because since Ash already got her own comic, at least we will not be terrified by high-definition images of him. Hey, did you know that we have social media and Twitch where we talk about other League facts and stories? And did you know that we have neat mugs and shirts too? The links to all of that will be below. And as always, thank you, come again.